we're coming to the end of the hour here. What do you want people to have taken away from today?
I want people to know that there are a million ways to stay healthy. So even if physically you're not able right now, there are so many steps that we could use that could bridge that gap for you, where you don't have to deal with the pain now. Let us start by getting rid of some of the pain. That gets your blood and gets things moving. And then we get your insides moving, and then we get your outsides moving. So there is a way to do it. And I work with amputees, stroke patients, just absolutely anything you can imagine. I got kids on every end of the spectrum. Because again, we all need health and wellness. Things are a mess right now. Healthcare is a mess. And we find ourselves stuck in this space between fitness and healthcare. So we're all trying to stay well so we don't have to go and deal with healthcare, right? Because it's such a mess.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of I Love Being Sober. My name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people on their path to recovery. We started this show because there's so much misinformation about addiction treatment, mental illness, and recovery in general. There's so much more to recovery than just going to inpatient treatment, seeing a therapist, and going to 12-step meetings. Those things are important, and AA saved my life, but there's just so much more to long-term recovery, and there's so much more to living happy, joyous, and free. More than just stopping the drinking, stopping the drugs, and stopping any addictive behavior for that matter. To live a new life, a person needs to develop new lifestyle habits. Also, taking care of the mind, body, and spirit are crucial aspects to recovery. Those are the types of things to talk about here on this show. I'm here with Larry Arnold. Larry is a two-time national Nebraska football player, a health and wellness coach, a biohacker, red light therapist, and creator of the Larry Arnold approach, which is a comprehensive method that he designed to create balance in understanding, ability, and outcome. I met Larry back in 2016. He's my coach. He's the guy that taught me how to run, and I can tell that story later. I went to Larry not knowing how to run, or I couldn't run more than 5 or 6 miles, and I didn't run long distances. I hadn't run for like 20 years, and after seeing Larry, I ended up running a 4-hour marathon when I did Ironman, which is a pretty decent time, especially since I didn't run. And that's after swimming 2.4 miles and after riding 112 miles. And I owe it to Larry. I mean, he's literally the guy that keeps me injury-free. Anytime I eventually get injured, I go to see Larry. He always gives me the best advice and helps me stay injury-free. Today, we're going to talk about biohacking, NAD, ozone therapy, red light therapy, power plates, and how to lose fat and get fit without spending hours upon hours at the gym on a daily basis. So, Larry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. It was almost as much fun helping you run as it was watching you run.
Did you actually watch?
You know what? Watching you run was a treat. You look like the Incredible Hulk chasing a cheeseburger. So you look determined, but you were so strong that we kind of had to just let some of the strength go. But that's kind of what we're here to talk about, though, I think. How many people are working way too hard? You know, I understand what the goals are. I know what kind of results people want. And my goal is, can we find a way to get it to them not only easier, but in some safer manner, or in some way where they're not going to be doing more damage to the body, you know, trying to get the results and they're actually going to get from the work. And that's what biohacking is all about. So Tim, exactly like he said, he came in and he was strong and muscular and he's determined. Anybody who knows him already knows that. So once he said what he wanted, and that was the most important part, is he wanted to be able to run without cramping up, without having pain, and without having injury. So we took a look at the run, and we had to change a couple things. But he's a willing participant. He's a good student. And so we changed them all. It started with the breathing, but eventually we got it done. And now how many triathlons have you done since 2016?
I don't know, probably 20.
Yeah, countless, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Countless. Because
Yeah. I mean,
running's not an issue.
I could run. I mean, I literally ran a marathon without any pain, and it was easy. And I was the guy that, I mean, a mile was a long run day, right? I did
Right.
CrossFit, I did yoga, I hiked. I didn't run. I was the guy that said I hate running. I mean, I ran in high school and I played high school sports. And I remember the first thing that you told me when you saw me run was, wow, you're making it too hard. It doesn't need to be that hard. And first things first, you're not breathing. So let's talk about your breathing. Let's talk about breath work. You had me go and take Pilates for a month, and we opened up my hips. We didn't even run for like the first month that we were
Actually,
working
I
together.
forbade you to run. You were not allowed to run.
Yeah, I was not allowed to run. I remember that. And okay, so before we continue, let's go back to give me a little bit of your background.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm born and raised in Akron, Ohio. Go Bucks. I played every single sport in the world coming up. And really, I wasn't athletic. I was such a nerd. I was tall, skinny, awkward. I stuttered for a long time. And I began to use sports more as an escape, right? I was big enough that they would let me on the teams even though I wasn't talented or I wasn't coordinated. But it became such an escape. But being the nerd that I was always looking into it. I wanted to see why that guy moved that way, why that guy got injured. So that just continued. I ended up getting a football scholarship. I hated football from day one. I was on the swim team. I ran track, but I got a football scholarship. And when I went to Nebraska, at the time it was in the early 90s. 92 was my first year there. And they had the best weight room and strength and training facility, bar none, across the country. And that's what sold me. I didn't go for football. I went because of the type of lifting and wellness program that they had. And that's what I learned in college, to be honest. I was in the weight room nonstop. I would stare and I would study while they trained the volleyball players, the tennis. And it didn't matter which team. I was fascinated with the different training styles and different methodologies they used. And so that's really what got me interested. And then afterwards, you know, I knew football wasn't for me. So after I left football, then I got into health and wellness. And then, you know, here we are today. I spent some time in physical therapy clinics, working a lot of rehab stuff. But that's how we got here.
So how did you go from being the athlete, and because today your passion is in biohacking and helping people? I mean, I see you. You're one of the best, if not the best, coach, physical therapist that I've ever worked with. I mean, you're literally, I mean, I've sent you so many people because you know exactly what to do. You know what the issue is. I mean, somebody can walk up to you, you can look at them for 5 seconds, and they're like, oh, my calf hurts. And you're like, no, okay, it's not your calf. It's actually your IT band. And so did you get to that place where you just wanted to help people?
You know what? It's actually always been that way for me since I was a child, since I was really young. And even the teams that I would get onto, I wasn't really interested in playing. I didn't want to be in the game, right? That's embarrassing. I might miss a shot, right? I don't want everybody to laugh at me.
Okay.
But I loved practice. I love that the coach, you know, every coach coaches a little bit differently. But I love the way that they would teach different skills. So in hearing all of these different things, I found myself now trying to translate it to the other people on my teams, right? So I ended up being almost this player coach on every team that I was on. So much so that it was hard for coaches to coach me because I didn't want to do the play. I wanted to help everybody understand. And so when I got into fitness, it became the same thing. I realized what everybody's goals were. Everybody wants to be healthier, but they're not necessarily receiving the information in a way that will work for them. So my true value add, I believe, is my ability to communicate. So I can take this language that seems simple and I can explain it in a million different ways. And so depending on who the person is, it's the same lesson. I can just give it to them in a different language. So, and let's be honest, you know what? We're on I Love Being Sober, so let's talk about it. You came in and you explained who you were and what you do, and you explained a little bit about your background. So instantly I realized that I'm dealing with someone with an addictive personality. Okay, so now I know that I can use that to my advantage. Because in training, I need you to have that addictive personality. I need you to want to do this, even though it might hurt sometimes, even though it might feel like it's not the right thing sometimes. I need that stick-to-itiveness, some people will call it. And so then once I began teaching you these little tricks that would help the run get a little better, I knew that your addictive nature would have you practice them so often that it was going to be easy to teach you. So I just taught you one step at a time and just let you be Tim. But each person's different, right? Everybody has a different level of addictive personality, and that's really what you got to find. Or that's one of my approaches. I try to find that. What's the thing that person's addicted to, or how are they addicted? If I can take that and sway it, and we can get that over into learning fitness, then that's what we're dealing with. So I've always been this guy. And when I got into fitness and I saw people working too hard, if there was anything I could do that could make this journey easier for them, then I figured they would just stick to it and be a good business model. There we go.
So what's the definition of biohacking? Because that's a term that's thrown around, and I don't think a lot of people know really what biohacking means.
Well, you know what? Just so I don't get it wrong, I'm gonna now I'm going to give an actual definition. But first, I'll explain what my definition would be, and then I'll give you a technical one. So we have our natural biology, or the things that are designed to happen. Eating healthy food would be an idea of biohacking. You could just eat the average of the food that's out there, but then you know you're going to die at the average time and get the average diseases. You might now decide that you're going to do some healthier options. You're now hacking what biology has really put upon you. Right? And so there are a million ways we could do that. Stretching, more hydration, more sunlight. And with the technology that we have now, there are so many different high-tech things that we can do, between the NAD+, the red light therapy, ozone therapy, power plates, like we were saying before, cryobaths, cryotanks, different ways that you can actually control what we call telomeres, or your life years, or how much life you have left in your years, how many years you have left in your life. That's biohacking, a way to get around what the norm is.
Okay. And so we're going to go through the different modules, or the different types of biohacking. So let's start with red light therapy. Talk to me about red light therapy.
Okay, well, after I got out of the fitness industry, I spent 5 years at a physical therapy clinic, and I got the pleasure of being the exercise assistant and the exercise protocol designer for this therapist. And it did wonderful things for me. It took the 15 years of personal training knowledge that I had, and it turned it on its ear. Because now I had to ask myself, what about people with actual injuries, or with actual one leg shorter than the other? And so I had to adapt my training models. One of the things that I got introduced to at the time was red light therapy. And people might be familiar with cold lasers or different laser treatments. Red light therapy is the same, just now you can use these LED lights. And what happens is, light is an energy, much like sunlight. Sunlight will stop on the surface and it will cook your skin. That's where the light is active. Red light goes deeper than the skin. It takes the white out. And so it gets into the subcutaneous levels, all the way into the fat levels, and you can get some red lights that go as deep as your heart or your brain. And what it's mainly used for is to reduce inflammation. So the red light is active on every single cell's mitochondria that it touches, and it will get rid of inflammation, it will get rid of swelling, and get rid of pain. It grows hair, balances hormones, gets rid of stretch marks, it builds collagen. There are over 140 published studies of what this stuff does, and there's no question of whether or not it works. It's just the information. We got to get it out to people. So right now, you can look up red light therapy in just about anything. Red light therapy in hair growth, like I said, and hormone balance. But it's highly effective. There are zero negative side effects. It works even for fat loss and for muscle gain. So it's the newest hip thing, but it'll be very, very popular in the next 5 years. And you can find it just about, definitely in any city if you look for it, more expensive in some than others.
Right. And I think a lot of people out there, they don't understand the true benefits of red light therapy. And there like, for example, there's Demise, which is up the street from us, and they have a red light room, and I have a red light at my house. And I know I tell people the benefits of light therapy. It increases testosterone, it increases circulation, it decreases inflammation. However, I just, there's no like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing after you go through red light therapy. So what are the true benefits of red light therapy, and how do you get the results? How do you see the results? How do you know you're getting the results?
That's a perfect question. One of the big keys with red light therapy is consistency. So even though it will work immediately, and by immediately I mean exactly that. If you have swelling in your knee, and it could be from an acute injury or just overall edema, if you apply the red light correctly, it will move the blood along and get rid of the swelling within 5 to 10 minutes. So it's a proven science, but consistency is the key. Even if you can use it today to get rid of inflammation and swelling, if you can use it consistently over the next 2 to 3 weeks, you'll see your skin start to clear up. You'll see, like I said, scars will begin to go away. Actual stretch marks get filled in, because what stretch marks are it's almost a tear in the collagen. The skin's all running one direction, it gets pulled a little bit out. This red light therapy will go through and activate the collagen and just fill in those lines. The same thing with the testosterone or with hyper or hypothyroidism. Because the thyroid gland is so close to the surface, the red light can penetrate deep enough, it activates the cells, and they will just balance themselves out. So I think people walk away a little bit, sometimes dejected, but maybe they just don't understand some of the art that goes into it. And by art, this is what I mean. Within red light therapy, there are different nanometers, and the nanometers are all measurement modules, much like centimeters or millimeters. And each nanometer means that that light goes however deep underneath the skin. Different nanometers treat different things, as do different treatment times. So you want to get with somebody who knows the multiple nanometers, and you want to make sure you're using the right nanometers for what you're trying to treat. All of them work, from 600, which does acne scars, and we'll get rid of that, to 630, which burns 50% more fat when you use it, all the way into the 800s or the 1200s that get all the way into brain tissue, and they're using it already right now for traumatic brain injury. As soon as somebody gets a concussion, they can get the red light right on their head, and it will actually reduce the swelling immediately inside the brain. So this isn't maybe stuff. I mean, it's stuff that they're already using in the NBA, they're already using in the NFL. It's just now trickling down to the health and wellness field, but it's real and it's here. But if you're consistent with it, you will definitely feel it, and you'll know the difference.
Is there a difference between red lights? And for example, I have a red light here at my house, and I think it's 660, 660 and 850. Those are the two frequencies, right? So and I think that those are the standard frequencies. Like, so what's the 660 for? What's the 850 for? What's the difference?
So when we're discussing nanometers of light, 0 nanometers would be a white light, and so it reflects on the skin. A normal tanning bed would be 0 nanometers. The red lights begin at 600 and work their way down. And like I said, they'll get all the way into 1500s. Those become infrared lights. So you'll hear infrared saunas. It's still about the light. The light's just so thin you can't see it. So with a 660 light, it's simply telling you that the light's going to go 660 nanometers deep. Depending on your build, the light will be active. Some people might have a fat layer this deep, and so they're still in their fat layer with the light. For most of us at 660, we can trust that that light's going to get into the middle of our muscle bellies, or it's going to make it down to our muscle tissue. So that light's going to work mostly to combat fatigue, lactic acid after workouts, and to give you just a better overall feeling. It'll be kind of like getting a massage, but with light. And then that 850 light goes much deeper. That one you'll use for joint pain and joint healing, for organ pain. That's the one that is so thin that it will go through your bone, it'll go through your skull, and actually be active in your brain tissue. So with the 660 and 850, those are the two most basic nanometers where they know that people will have an efficacy. So if you were just putting together lights and just wanted to get them out, those two. If you just pick one, then somebody's going to pick up on the fact that your light only does one thing. So if you pick two, that's pretty good. There are some lights, both by Juve and I want to say the other company, I can't remember the other company's name, but they have 5 nanometers in each light. They're doing it for exactly that purpose. Their goal is eventually somebody like me is going to come along and talk about these other nanometers. And so they're much more expensive, but they're much more versatile. So a good light is one that has the proper nanometers for what you want to treat. And again, a good basic light is 660 and 850. And you want enough power behind that light. And generally what we want is, what they ask for is 100 joules, or basically 100 watts per centimeter squared. So you want enough power behind the light. The one that one of the basic ones that you buy online will generally work. You want to stay away from the little flimsy handheld devices, because they're going to try to capitalize on the same red light idea, but there won't be enough power to make a difference.
Gotcha. And then, so is there a different frequency for fat loss, or not for fat loss versus like acne?
100%. Again, great question. And again, this is where the art comes in, and you want to get with somebody who's skilled. All of the different nanometers have different studies that back them. And that's why there's so many studies. So for example, the 600 to the 610 nanometers are very close to the skin, and those will do acne scarring. But at that nanometer, and for acne scarring or acne inflammation, you only want to do 2 to 3 minutes worth of treatment. Now, fat loss, for example, because your fat cells are a little bit deeper underneath the skin, those are 635 to 645 nanometers. And those lights will burn fat. And the way that they work is as long as your fat cells are exposed to 635 to 645 nanometer lights for 8 minutes before cardio, you'll release 90% of the fat from each cell into your bloodstream. And so as we go deeper in the nanometers, the lights all have different effects. So you want to be careful, make sure you're using the correct lights for your goal. Don't try to get rid of your acne with a fat burning light, because you're going to burn and bubble the fat up. It's going to come out of the acne, and you're going to think the light didn't work because it made your acne worse. When in fact it did work, it just burned all the fat off your face.
Gotcha. There's a lot to red light therapy. Okay.
There is. You know what? Just know that it works. And so my biggest thing for everybody is get involved. Get into your life. There are no negative side effects. With the things that it does for anxiety and depression alone, even if you were to use the wrong light for your skin and muscle goals, what it's going to do for your brain is amazing. Because what it does is it's going to photo cleanse the blood, or it's going to get light into the blood and help your blood become actually healthier. Every place your blood touches will now get better and more ample blood, is the best way I can say it.
Are there studies that support the use of red light therapy for mental illnesses, for anxiety, depression?
100%. That's actually why I think this is such a great field, because what starts off as this vanity play or as this fat burn thing, I know that over the next couple of years, the deeper that people dig, the more they're going to find, and the more they find about the anxiety, the depression, the Alzheimer's, and all the things that have to do with the brain, the better it's going to be. So just like we were talking about with concussions or with traumatic brain injury, this light can go in and turn off the inflammation, and that will halt the swelling, which makes the whole incident a lot less effective or dramatic. The same thing happens when we talk about Alzheimer's, depression, stroke. Certain parts of your brain are getting deprived of blood. That's literally what's happening. So if we can get light underneath the skin to nerve endings and to blood vessels, or the things that have started to shut down, then the light will do what it would do to anything else. It will cause it to open back up and to grow and to mature. So we're actually able to grow people's brains. Sounds crazy, but that's what light does to things if you can get it through.
Okay.
So yes, the studies are out there, and I tell everybody, any question about red light, you can Google red light and anxiety, and you will just be amazed. You'll be like, there's no way that there's this much stuff here I didn't know. So I encourage anybody, if they have questions, please call me anytime. I will send you more information than you can handle.
Tell me about NAD.
NAD, another biohacking term. Nicotinamide riboside, NAD+. It's an amino acid. It's a stem cell proliferator. Its initial outlay would have been, for people who are getting stem cells in their knees or their neck or for their shoulder, one of the things they would put into your IV bag would be this NAD+. And what it does is it helps stem cells to actually grow and be open to connecting to other cells. One of the first ways that they used it outside of stem cell proliferation is in opiate clinics. So in really high-end opiate clinics, what happens is you've taken so many opiates that your opiate receptors have now been worn down, and so now you need more opiates, and then life's just a mess. Well, with just 10 days at 1,000 milligrams per day of this NAD+, it will just go through your body and will regrow whatever receptors are worn down. That's its only thing. It's not trying to do anything special. It will just regrow those receptors. And what all the patients are claiming after the 10 days is not only are all of the symptoms gone, but they don't have any cravings. And that's the key. So there's still obviously plenty of other work that has to be done, right? We got to get in touch with what's going on. But as far as the not having the cravings, that's huge. And then that made it big. So now it's big on the athletic scene as well, or also just on the thought scene, because it will go through and not only do these opioid receptors, but any receptors that you have that are worn down. So perhaps you've been addicted to smoking and your nicotine receptors are worn down. Your caffeine receptors are worn down. I am constantly just working out and thinking all of my receptors are worn down. This NAD plus goes in. It's not a good feeling when it goes in, and you can
right.
do it through an IV bag, and it takes a little bit longer. You can do a drip, or you can do subcutaneous shots. but you get it in your system. All of our NAD production starts to go down after the age of 30. So by the time we're 35, 40, we're not making any anymore. But if you take these shots, once your NAD levels go back up, the best way I can explain it is like a limitless pill. Your brain clears up, you're thinking really, really well, and you stop craving stuff you got no business craving.
And how does the NAD plus affect your mitochondria?
Okay, that's a really good question. The way that it affects the mitochondria is exactly the same as the red light. The red light's going to activate the mitochondria from a light sense on the outside and just encourage it to grow from just a normal light energy. What NAD does is instead, like an amino acid, it literally gets into your bloodstream. When it gets to those stem cells or whatever receptors have been worn down, it just encourages them to grow. These are the growth points in your body. Stem cells are what help us to regenerate. Stem cells are, that's how you clone a sheep, right? So anything that's dead in the body or decaying just literally gets replenished. Instead of you eating and hoping the protein gets broken down, we're going directly to the amino acids, directly to the chemical agent, and just getting right down to replenishing it at the stem cell level. So we're talking about replenishing the growth pot for the plant instead of hoping the plant will grow.
Right. And who should be interested in NAD?
Absolutely everyone. When I first heard about it, Ben Greenfield was talking about it with Joe Rogan. And Ben was talking about, he mentioned that when he first got tested, he was actually, I think he was 34, but the test said that they read him as 36. And he had done all these different biohacking things over the last couple of years. And his new age was like 24, right? So now he's 37. No, now he's 36, but his new age is 24. But he started talking about this NAD+. And that was enough to make me look it up. But once I looked it up, I realized absolutely everybody, whether it's the athlete who's just beating himself up, and so his body's just he's not putting his body back together as well as he can, or if it's my father-in-law who just got out of the hospital, and I know that his receptors and his regenerative things are not what they should be. So as he's trying to heal, I know that there's some help we could give him that would help stem cell proliferation, and that would just speed the healing process. So basically, we're old and we're grown. Our body isn't regenerating anymore, but we have science and technology, and we have the ability to do that. So I think we should use it.
Right. Absolutely. Tell me about ozone therapy.
Ozone therapy. Ozone therapy has, it's big. It's been around for at least 100 years. And a lot of people don't know this. Penicillin replaced ozone. So before we had penicillin, we would use ozone for everything. If you had gangrene in your leg, they would put ozone in the leg and it would kill all the gangrene and all these other things. But it was such a bother mixing the gas and making it right. So then one day somebody created penicillin. Much easier to just give you penicillin for any infection or bacteria that you have. It was just easier to do. And that turned into, then amoxicillin and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, the original form before we had this was ozone. In other countries, in Austria,
and what is ozone?
Ozone, well, let's talk about that. So
ozone?
It is the best thing in the world at killing bacteria and or diseases. So it's the natural form of penicillin. And truly what it is much like the ozone layer above us that breaks things down as it tries to pass through. It's CO3. So instead of CO2, it's CO3. So we would take a CO2 or an oxygen, we would run it through a converter. In that converter, we would add an additional molecule of oxygen, turning it into now a CO3. So now you could breathe that, but we'll get into that in a second. Don't ever breathe it. If we could take that CO3, your body will make use of the CO2 the normal way that it does. That extra molecule the extra molecule of oxygen now becomes the free radical. It breaks off and it is loose within whichever cell it's in, and it's just a little oxygen molecule. It will latch on to whatever doesn't fit here, and it will literally just oxidize it. And so what happens is, much like a Lysol or like a Clorox bleach, if you can get CO3 into your bloodstream somehow, it will kill between 90 to 95% of all bacteria and or diseases that it encounters. So we can never say that it cures cancer because it doesn't. We can say that cancer cannot live in the presence of oxygen. So if I can get you some oxygen with an extra oxygen molecule in there, then the cancer won't survive in its presence. We can't say that it will cure COVID, it gets rid of COVID, because it doesn't. We can say that COVID cannot survive in the presence of this oxygen. So if we can get that oxygen in, then the COVID will not survive. Then these are all proven things, and you can look this up. When the respirators fail and all of the medical protocols fail, they will generally try ozonating the blood and putting it back in. They don't talk about it because it's not a medicine, so it's not part of a medical protocol. But every medical office carries ozone gas. And if you go to your naturopath and you ask for it, you'll be able to get it. You get ozone treatment and ozone therapy. But it works really, really well. And it does the same thing that the other two things did. The gas itself goes in, and because of that extra oxygen, your body's now able to do what your body would do more naturally with more fuel. So it heals itself. It will literally get rid of inflammation immediately. Like I said, what it will do with the diseases and the bacteria. When you see a basketball player in the NBA and he twists his ankle just right, he goes at halftime, he's never coming back out, and he comes back out and he plays the second half, they shot him with ozone. That's what happened. That's what they do in the locker room. When you get a root canal now, nobody's cutting your tooth off. They put a needle in there and it burns, and then they go, fine, no infection. They're putting ozone gas in there, it's killing the infection.
Wow. Okay. And tell me about the Larry Arnold approach. What's that?
Okay, perfect. Well, you know what? I think I look at it a little bit differently. I hope we can probably tell that by now. What's important to me is people, right? I'm more interested in people than the process. And so when I'm talking to people about what it is they want and how we're going to get them there, I need to understand who they are and what they want first. Then, based on their ability to do what they want, now comes my value add, because now I need to add in all the rest of the things. So my approach is that. What does the person want? What do they need in order to have what they want? And how can I assist? So nobody ever gets to just run on the first day. We have to figure out what's wrong with you, how we can make that thing right, how we can make running easy for you to do, and then I'm going to make you run. So the approach is show up, honor what's asked, be open to the opportunity, and then to be thankful. And if I can do that every single time I come to see you, then you will get what you want. So that's my approach. I'm going to show up, I'm going to honor what you ask, I'm going to be open to the opportunity, I'm going to be thankful. So we make sure that you get all the proper stretching and technique first before we get into the work. If you don't have the technique, how hard we work is not going to help us. So technique first, then we work, and then we perform. And that's literally the Larry Arnold approach. Technique, work, and then form. Technique, work, perform. Technique, work, perform. And it never ever changes. And then you're going to perform until you break something. When you break something, we're going to go over your technique again. And then we're going to work that again. Right. And then I'm going to send you back out to perform until eventually, every time you come in, I'm going to go, well, what do you think was wrong with the technique? Hopefully, eventually you can tell me, you know what happened? I turned my leg too far to the left and now I got it. Fine, let's get right to work and then we'll get you out of here. So it's really that simple.
I think that's in line with people are working too hard. It's working or not harder, right? It's taking care of yourself, not getting injured. And one of the main things that I wanted to talk to you about today, and you want to talk about, is people think that they need to work out for hours and hours and hours to get healthy and fit. And your experience is that most people are not willing to work out for hours and hours and hours to get fit.
Actually, you know what? I actually recommend against it, because this is what happens. And again, I've been blessed in my experience. The time in Nebraska and the time in all the sports was wonderful. But you got to realize how much damage your body takes during a workout. So I understand that our goal is to get fit. But when I was talking about the Ironman, I don't want you to run thousands of miles in preparation to run 26. That doesn't make any sense. We're going to get injured, and we're going to use all of your moxie, if you will, during the training. I would rather we spend our training time perfecting the technique. And it's the same thing with fat loss or with muscle gain. It's not that people aren't working hard enough, it's that they're not working correctly. And so I challenge everybody out there, if you're a runner, and I ask every runner this, how did you learn how to run? And almost every runner tells me they didn't learn, they just started running. And even if they had a coach, the coach told me mileage and how did you learn how to run? Much like I would ask you if you know how to drive. I don't care that you're tall enough to see over the steering wheel. I don't care that you can reach the pedals. If you don't know the rules of driving, you're going to ding this car up and you're going to break a lot of laws. So I want the same thing in fitness. If people can learn just the technique to accomplish what they want, they could save themselves a lot of work time. So when people come to see me, there's 8 minutes in the red light bed because I know that that will mobilize 50% more fat. Why should I warm them up forever? And then it's 15 to 20 minutes on the power plate, because now, since the power plate can multiply the efficacy of workouts between 3 to 6 times, I don't need you in there for an hour. I can get the same amount of work done in 15 minutes. And that's my goal. If I can get your stuff done in 30 to 40 minutes, then we got something. If it's taking longer than that, your body's going to begin to break down. And that's just a simple fact of exercise. Simple fact. Don't work so hard during the exercise that you're damaging your body, because that's not the goal at all.
Right. And tell me about the power plate.
Okay. The power plate's been around for quite some time. It was originally designed for Russian cosmonauts, actually, in space. And it was based on bone density, but they created a machine that, when you've seen it in many gyms, it moves front to back, side to side, and up and down. And for most people, they'll understand that you can use it for warm up and for stretching and things like that. But effectively what it does is it either, between 3 to 6 times, it can increase the efficacy of a workout. And to make it simple, what you would think about is, because the machine's moving front to back, side to side, up and down, your nerves have to follow the machine. So it'll move as many as 3,000 times per minute. So you're getting 3,000 micro contractions inside your body, so you're already burning calories before you do any exercise. Your grandma could watch Jeopardy and not move a muscle. She's going to burn between 400 to 450 calories just standing there watching Jeopardy. If you can start moving around on the plate, you can multiply. I've gotten people all the way up to 1,700 calories in 1 hour. It's brutal, but it's a physical therapy tool that's guaranteed to give you the results that you want. Everything's perfectly measured and metered. But if used correctly, it can just be one of the best tools for either burning fat, building muscle, or just learning. So just realize that the way that we understand exercise is we would move ourselves around, and after enough movements, our blood would flow and we would get hot and we would burn calories. Well, in this case, the machine will move the muscles for you, stimulating your nervous system. Muscles follow whatever the nerves say, and now the heart rate's going. So even people that are injured or can't move, we can get calories burnt and get the weight off of them on this machine, and then we get their mobility back, and then eventually we get them into more and more exercise. So the power plate, again, it's been around about 15 years. They got them at a lot of different gyms now. There are a lot of different settings on them. It's an art, kind of like the red light therapy, but if you learn how to use it, it will be the most effective piece of workout equipment you've ever been on, ever.
Right. And I agree. I have a power plate at my house that I use. I get in front of my red light. I mean, I do this every morning. I do my breath work, which I want to talk to you about breath work as well. I do breath work. I pray. I meditate. I do red light therapy. I hop on my power plate before I go over to F45. So that's kind of my routine.
And see, that's what I want people to get. You could let all of this biohacking replace your workout if you want to. It's good enough that it will get the work done for you. I like it the way that you're saying it. I would rather somebody came and they got to red light, do all these things that would guarantee the specific result, and now they're free to go and do the activity they want to do to an enjoyment level. I don't want you to do your activity until you're fatigued, and because that's how the body gets beat up. I would rather you come in and we scientifically get the results we want, than exercise however you want. So I like that way. But the power plate, for stretching, there are stretching settings, there are massage settings, there are muscle tightening settings. And so you can use it in all those different ways. And the number one way is for lymphatic drainage. And a lot of people aren't aware of this, but you got these lymph nodes, right? So some are here or some are here, but lymph only travels down. And that's why migraines are so tough. There's no way to get any lymph into your head to get rid of your headache. But lymph only spills out of the lymph glands. So when you're bouncing up and down, it spills out. That's why we like running. Because the power plate is bouncing up and down, it's the only brand that does that. The more time you spend on the power plate, you actually get lymph drunk, right? So after the first 10 minutes, not only is it not hard, you start feeling pretty good. I can kick this power plate's butt. You're just drunk. Your body is now numb from this lymph that is spilled out into it. And so now you have more endurance and more stamina. So that's one of the best benefits of it, is that even if you're not able to exercise or get the movements in, you can get this lymph flowing in your body. And that lymph is what keeps inflammation down. And as you can probably tell by now, all these things are based on controlling inflammation. Because inflammation is the beginning of disease, inflammation is the beginning of cancer, inflammation is the beginning of death. If we can control inflammation, we're not going to have any problems. Think about it. No inflammation, I could tear my arm off and I wouldn't feel any pain. We're trying to manage inflammation, and all these things do that.
Let's talk about breath work. And I remember one of the first things that you said to me when I first saw you, and I wanted to learn how to run, is you said, you're not breathing. And we did some kickboxing, and I was seeing stars, and you said, see, I told you you're not breathing. And so let's talk about the importance of breathing.
Okay, well, I'm a movement maniac. I'm all about perfect movement, right? So if we can get this body to move just the way that we want it, then the exercise will be much easier. You'll get your results a lot faster. Well, the breath or your oxygen is the fuel for the car. And so when we were born, before we learned anything else, we were all breathing machines. That's the one thing we're going to do. We don't understand that once we get under stress, the first thing the body does is go into fight or flight. So especially in exercise, you'll stop breathing. You won't realize it because when you really get going, you just want to try really, really hard. And what's truly happening is once the work is too much for you, your body is trying to autonomically turn off your breathing. It's the fail-safe. It's trying to cut the gas. Too heavy, too much work, this burn, stop. Because if you stop breathing, you will stop working. So breathing is important in that way. Not just because I'm out of breath, but from a mechanical standpoint. I can't get your diaphragm to move up into your rib cage unless you exhale. If your diaphragm doesn't move up and out of your rib cage, then you're going to have Tommy Bahama belly, and then your belly sticks out in the front. If you got Tommy Bahama belly and your belly sticking out in the front, then you're going to run by swinging your hips in the back. So I need breathing so it can pull you into the correct posture. So now we can release your low back and your hips. So I need it more of a mechanical thing than even an oxygen thing. And once people realize that that's part of the mechanics, then we can teach the rest of the exercise. But if you're not doing the first thing, then all these things on the end are going to suffer. And once we can get people to focus on breathing, now of course there's more oxygen, the muscles don't burn as badly, and you can run for a longer time. But then we get into meditation. I love the breathing mostly because of that. I'm going to need you to meditate at some point during the exercise, and if I get you focusing on the breathing early, then later on when everything else falls apart, just come back to your breathing.
Right.
That's why breathing is important. You need it mechanically as well as chemically.
And what about being at an acidic state versus an alkaline state?
So that's part of the chemical. If I can get you moving this oxygen freely, then as these muscles are creating more and more lactic acid, that extra oxygen will help speed up that process. At some point, you will be in such acidosis that your body starts producing lymph to get rid of the acidosis. Then we hit this little numb, or what we would call a Zen state, and now breathing's easy. If you hold off on the breath, you're preventing that process from happening. So now you're just living in the beginning of the acid. It's just going to keep burning. I would rather you just go ahead and let it burn until finally I'm numb. And that's when we hit the zone. That's when runners, after 5 miles, I'm in the zone. Right. Because by then, the lymph has kicked in because you let the acidosis happen. If you had fought the acidosis, most people between 3 and 5 miles, they're out of there. Because the breathing starts kicking off at 3. And after enough of that, now the burning is so bad because they never make it over the hump. If they would just go ahead and breathe, it is going to burn worse at first, but then you'll go numb. And then we can run all day. And then you wake up tomorrow and wonder what in the world you were thinking. But that's also why I sent you to Pilates, right? You were so strong and your body was so concentrically focused or reflecting focused that I needed to get your brain going the other direction first. So rather than send you to workouts or even to run, go and do Pilates, which is the lengthening of muscles as we tighten them. And so it just got you thinking the other direction. And once you were learning to go that way hard, then we started going that way a little bit looser, and now we just run. But that's the approach. We got to do it in these different stages and different steps depending on each individual. It's got to be about the person and not the lesson.
So we're coming to the end of the hour here. What do you want people to have taken away from today?
I want people to know that there are a million ways to stay healthy. So even if physically you're not able right now, there are so many steps that we could use that could bridge that gap for you, where you don't have to deal with the pain now. Let us start by getting rid of some of the pain. That gets your blood and gets things moving. And then we get your insides moving, and then we get your outsides moving. So there is a way to do it. And I work with amputees, stroke patients, just absolutely anything you can imagine. I got kids on every end of the spectrum. Because again, we all need health and wellness. Things are a mess right now. Healthcare is a mess. And we find ourselves stuck in this space between fitness and healthcare. So we're all trying to stay well so we don't have to go and deal with healthcare, right? Because it's such a mess. But then fitness is this whole other space where you got to be an athlete. Well, I'm operating in this space in between. So if you and your physical therapist are trying to figure it out, if you and your doctor are trying to figure it out, if you and your trainer are trying to figure it out, I would love to help. And I give away as much information as I can for free. So please call me, please get involved. But if you're sitting at home, and whether it's addiction, whether it's back pain, whether it's you just don't know what you're doing, whether you're 500 pounds, just don't know where to get started, there are ways to get you going. They don't have to hurt, and they don't even have to look like exercise. We got machines and computers that will do it all for you, and I'll let anybody come in and try anytime.
So how can people find you, Larry? Or how can they get a hold of you?
I am, you know what? You can always hit me up on IG. It's Larry Arnold TV. Online, it's redlightlarry.com. And I'm also at vibefitaz.com.
Okay, what's your Instagram again?
Larry Arnold TV.
Okay, at Larry Arnold TV. Okay.
And then any red light questions, like I said, you can ask me absolutely anything you want. I'm an open book. I love to spit up all this knowledge that I can. The more challenging the case, the better. I like the amputees. I like scoliosis. I like strokes. I like finding ways around the reasons why people can't work out. So if you can't, won't, or don't work out, call me.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Larry. I appreciate you. Always good chatting, and thanks, everyone. Hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right.